The closer I get to you, the better I can see that expression on you.
Imagine being loved by the only musician in the world who can read your emotions just by looking at your face, observing your body language, and speaking with you. That's the kind of presence Buddy Guy has carried for decades. A living legend whose music didn't just entertain, but penetrated the soul. Buddy Guy ruled the music world from the smoky blues clubs of Chicago to the grandest stages around the globe. With fiery guitar licks and a voice that could carry both heartbreak and defiance, he gave us unforgettable classics like Damn Right, I've Got the Blues, Feels Like Rain, Stone Crazy, and Skin Deep. His electrifying stage presence and fearless innovation made him one of the most influential musicians in history, inspiring many. At 88, with more than 6 decades of stories etched into his strings and soul, Buddy Guy has met, interacted, and worked with a lot of musicians. Many he loved. However, for the first time, he opens up about the 6 musicians who are his favorites out of the many he loves. Those shaped him the most, the ones he admired, leaned on, and carried in his heart as companions in the long journey of blues and beyond. While some were part of his life, his struggles, his triumphs, his legacy, some others keep him loving music. And wait until you hear who made it to number 2. Buddy says this musician reminds him of his younger self. Let's count down from number 6, B.B. King. Buddy's relationship with King is one of the most beautiful ones you'll find in a competitive music industry. Since the 1950 seconds when they first met each other, they've metamorphosed from just colleagues to brothers. But most importantly, Buddy revealed that King remains a source of inspiration to him.
All you gotta do is listen to B.B. King, man. That guy got a left.
When Buddy was still finding his feet as a young bluesman, B.B. King was already a giant, filling clubs and concert halls with his unmistakable sound. For most young players, standing in the shadow of a legend like B.B. would have been intimidating. But for Buddy, it was fuel. King became his light, his guide, and his constant source of inspiration. Buddy recalled sneaking into clubs or pressing himself up against stages just to hear B.B. play. He wasn't just listening to the notes, he was studying the man. He made that guitar talk, Buddy once said, and I thought, if I can just do half of that, maybe I can stand somewhere close to him. B.B. didn't just inspire Buddy to play, he inspired him to become. What set King apart and what inspired Buddy most was not just the way he bent notes or made Lucille, his guitar, cry with emotion. It was the way he carried himself as a man. In an industry filled with jealousy and competition, B was a model of humility. He showed Buddy that you could be the best without ever putting others down. That lesson stuck with Buddy throughout his career, shaping how he treated fellow musicians, younger players, and even fans. As Buddy rose in the scene, carving out his own reputation as a fiery guitarist with raw stage presence, B never treated him like a threat. Instead, he embraced him as a brother. On more than one occasion, King would invite Buddy on stage, giving him space to shine in front of massive audiences. For Buddy, those moments were more than stage time. They were validation from the very man who had inspired him to pick up the guitar. Their bond grew stronger and undeniable over the years. Interestingly, while giving a speech at the 2005 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, King openly acknowledged that Buddy was not just a friend, but a good one at that.
When it comes to being a great person, Buddy Guy is that. When it comes to be a great guitarist.
In interviews, B was quick to mention him, calling Buddy one of the true bluesmen of their time. Their relationship blossomed into a lifelong exchange of love and respect. Buddy said that watching King's discipline, the way he treated every fan, no matter how tired he was, the way he respected every stage, no matter how small, taught him lessons that no amount of fame could erase. When B.B. King passed away in 2015, Buddy's grief poured out in a way that showed just how deep that inspiration ran. He called B.B. the greatest there ever was. Number 5. Junior Wells. As young men back in the 1950 seconds, Buddy Guy and Junior Wells met in Chicago, a city that was then the heartbeat of the electric blues movement. Both were ambitious, hungry, and determined to carve their names into the gritty, smoke-filled club circuit that defined the city's nightlife. For Buddy, finding Wells was like finding the missing piece of his musical puzzle. The two clicked almost instantly, and according to Buddy, he never had a misunderstanding with Wells. They both flowed.
You and I ain't never had a misunderstanding.
And what followed was one of the most natural and effortless collaborations the blues world had ever seen. Junior Wells, with his fiery harmonica and bold stage presence, brought an energy that perfectly complemented Buddy Guy's electrifying guitar style. They didn't have to plan much, the music seemed to flow between them with ease. Buddy often said it felt like they could read each other's minds. I'd strike a chord, he once recalled, and before I even knew where I was going with it, Junior was already there, blowing on that harp like he'd been waiting for me his whole life. That chemistry was undeniable, and it quickly set them apart from other duos on the scene. Their partnership began to flourish in the late 1960s, a time when blues was facing pressure from the growing dominance of rock and soul. Instead of fading into the shadows, Buddy and Junior leaned into their strengths, often performing together in clubs like Teresa's Lounge, where the atmosphere was raw and electric. Crowds flocked to see them, not because of polished performances, but because every show felt like an unpredictable conversation. Buddy's guitar screaming, whispering, or laughing, while Junior's harmonica answered back with equal force. One of their most celebrated works together was the 1965 album Hoodoo Man Blues. To this day, it remains a landmark recording in Chicago blues. The record captured everything fans loved about their collaboration: the grit, the spontaneity, and the soul-deep connection between them. Critics hailed it as one of the finest electric blues albums ever made. And for Buddy, it was proof that his bond with Junior wasn't just good chemistry on stage, it translated into timeless music. But beyond the music, what Buddy loved most about Junior was the ease of their relationship. They weren't just collaborators, they were brothers in every sense of the word. They laughed together, fought together, drank together, and leaned on each other through the highs and lows of the musician's life. Buddy admired Junior's fearlessness, how he wasn't afraid to speak his mind or push boundaries on stage. That kind of boldness inspired Buddy to play harder, louder, and with even more conviction. Their bond was also strengthened by the struggles they shared. As black musicians in mid-20th century America, they faced countless obstacles, from racism to poor pay to being underappreciated by the mainstream industry. Yet, when they were together, all of that seemed to fade. The stage became their safe space, a place where they could unleash everything they carried inside. Buddy often said that when he was playing with Junior, the weight of the world felt lighter. Even as the years passed and the music industry evolved, Buddy and Junior's connection never wavered. They continued performing together into the 1970 seconds and 1980 seconds, delivering performances that proved the blues was alive and still as powerful as ever. Their duets became legendary, the kind of moments that reminded audiences that the blues wasn't just about sadness, but about survival, brotherhood, and joy. When Junior Wells passed away in 1998, Guy recalled how heartbroken he was. He said that he lost not just a collaborator, but a lifelong friend. He spoke about how empty the stage felt without Junior's harmonica answering his guitar. Number 4. Muddy Waters. At the time Guy had an encounter with Waters for the very first time, Waters was already a big name in the music industry. On naming Waters as one of his favorite musicians, he recounted how Waters came through for him on a particular night he desperately needed a miracle. In the beginning of his career, when no one knew his name and he was just another hungry musician wandering the streets of Chicago, doors seemed to close before him. He had left Louisiana with a dream and his guitar, hoping that the city's booming blues scene would welcome him in. But dreams are fragile when pockets are empty. He remembered nights when he was starving, desperate for a chance to prove himself, standing outside clubs. One of those nights became a turning point. Buddy was hungry, literally. He shared that on that particular day, he'd been walking the streets, clutching his guitar, thinking that maybe if he could play just one gig, he could get some money to eat and survive another day. He found himself at a Chicago club and begged the owner to let him play. But the man wouldn't give him the opportunity. To the club owner, Buddy was just another no-name, another desperate young man who wanted a spot on stage. Despite the rejection, Buddy refused to leave. He stood there, heart heavy, waiting, hoping for a miracle. That miracle came in the form of a phone call. Someone at the club decided to call Muddy Waters, the man who, by then, was already a king in the Chicago blues scene.
And somebody called Muddy after Otis first let me play the song.
Muddy's name carried weight like few others. If he spoke, people listened. When he arrived and heard what was going on, he insisted that the owner gives Buddy a chance. It was that simple. Muddy didn't know Buddy. He owed him nothing. But he saw the fire in him, the hunger, the determination written all over his face. And Muddy, being who he was, wasn't about to let raw talent go unheard. The club owner, of course, didn't argue once Muddy spoke. So Buddy got up on that stage. Nervous but ready, he poured every ounce of himself into the strings, and everyone there loved his music. That night, after his performance, Buddy didn't just make some money. He made a connection with Waters. It was love in the sincerest form. Waters, a man who decided to open a door for him when no one else would. Buddy couldn't stop talking about his encounter with anyone who cared to listen. Years later, Buddy would retell the story with tears in his eyes. "Muddy didn't know me," he said, "but he saw me. He gave me a chance when I was starving, when I had nothing. That moment wasn't just about playing in a club. It was about being seen, being heard, and being given a chance at survival in a city that could swallow dreamers whole. From that day on, Buddy's love for Muddy was deep and unwavering. They went on to share stages and shape the blues together, but for Buddy, Muddy was more than just a collaborator or mentor. He was the man who gave him a hand when he was at his lowest. Number 3, Jimi Hendrix.
I said, who the hell is that? And somebody said, that's Hendrix, man. Cool.
According to Buddy, the first time he met Hendrix in 1968, he didn't know who the young musician was. Hendrix was a soft-spoken young man with wild hair and a shy smile that didn't carry himself like a star. Buddy thought he was just another admirer. But then Hendrix leaned in and said something that stunned him. He had canceled his own gig just to have the chance to play with Buddy Guy. That single statement hit Buddy like a wave. Here was this young man who, unknown to Buddy, was already turning the music world upside down with his revolutionary guitar playing. Instead of acting untouchable, Hendrix was humbling himself, treating Buddy as the legend. "I didn't know his name," Buddy later admitted. "But the way he looked at me, the way he spoke, it was like he had been waiting for this moment his whole life." When they finally picked up their guitars, Buddy realized this wasn't just any musician. The sound that came out of Hendrix's hands was raw, dangerous, and otherworldly. The two of them traded riffs, with Buddy's sharp Chicago bite slicing into Jimmy's psychedelic swirls. The crowd watched in awe as these two energies collided, not in competition, but in perfect conversation. Buddy said it felt like they had known each other for years, speaking through the strings in a language only the bluesmen understood. What made Hendrix special to Buddy wasn't just the way he played. It was his humility, his respect. Despite the fireworks of his career, Hendrix never forgot where the music came from. He spoke openly about how Hendrix engaged him in one of the most unforgettable conversations he had ever had with a young person. "He asked me about all of them," Buddy remembered. He wanted to know everything, like a student sitting at the feet of the masters. That hunger to learn made Buddy love him even more. While so many musicians got lost in ego once fame hit, Hendrix carried himself with curiosity. He could have stood above everyone, but instead, he leaned down, always trying to grow. Buddy often said that Hendrix reminded him of what it meant to stay true to the music, to never forget that blues wasn't about glory, but about soul. But alongside admiration came heartbreak. Buddy also saw the fragile side of Hendrix, the weight of expectation, the chaos of fame, the loneliness behind the spotlight. When news broke in 1970 that Hendrix had died at just 27 years old, Buddy felt crushed. He said it was like losing a younger brother, someone who had only just begun to explore the depths of his gift. "The blues world cried that day," Buddy said quietly. Because Jimmy wasn't just playing the blues, he was taking it somewhere new. Buddy remembered Hendrix as the young man who once canceled his own show just for the privilege of standing beside him on stage. That act of respect, that gesture of humility, said more about Hendrix than any headline ever could. Decades later, Buddy still calls him one of the most loved musicians of his life, not because of the fame, but because of the heart.
Supporting a lot now, Quinn Sullivan.
Number 2, Quinn Sullivan. Born in 1999 Inches, Massachusetts, he picked up the guitar at the tender age of 3. By 6, he was already astonishing family and friends with his ability to master licks far beyond his years. His life changed dramatically in 2006 when, at just 7 years old, he appeared on The Ellen DeGeneres Show, dazzling viewers with his effortless command of the instrument. Soon after, in 2007, Sullivan's path crossed with Buddy Guy's, a moment that defined not only his career, but also his place in the blues community. According to Sullivan, meeting a legend like Buddy made him nervous, but it was the coolest encounter ever.
I think I was more nervous to meet him than play with him because it was like meeting him in person.
For Buddy, meeting Sullivan was like stepping back into time and looking at a reflection of his own youth. He said that when he looked at Quinn, he saw that same fire, the hunger to learn, the fearless drive, the curiosity that had once pushed him from a small town in Louisiana all the way to the Chicago blues scene, and he just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, because I couldn't believe it. He's amazing.
Watching Sullivan bend those strings with such conviction reminded Buddy of the first time he picked up a guitar and knew that it was more than an instrument, it was a lifeline. Buddy loved performing with Sullivan not only because of his technical skill, but because of the raw spirit the young guitarist carried. Their performances together became legendary. Buddy would often invite Quinn on stage, standing beside him as they traded solos. The chemistry between them was unmistakable. Buddy's seasoned, fiery phrasing interwoven with Sullivan's youthful but precise lines. Audiences weren't just watching two guitarists. They were watching the past and the future of the blues standing shoulder to shoulder. And for Buddy, that was one of the greatest joys of his later career. But beyond the technicalities and performances, their bond was deeply personal. Buddy said that Sullivan gave him hope, a reassurance that the music he had spent his life fighting to preserve was in safe hands. In many ways, Quinn Sullivan was more than a protege to Buddy Guy. He was a mirror. Number 1. Eric Clapton. When people think of Eric Clapton, they picture one of the most celebrated guitarists in the world, a star whose name alone shaped generations of rock and blues. Yet what makes Clapton's relationship with Buddy Guy so remarkable is that, despite all of his own fame and prestige, Clapton has never hidden the fact that he is, at heart, one of Buddy's biggest fans. That dynamic, one legend openly admiring another, has always meant the world to Buddy.
I didn't know who he was until I read what Eric Clapton said. Then I say to myself,
Buddy, in an interview, recalled that the first time he met Clapton face to face, he praised him about his style. To his surprise, Clapton revealed to him that he simply mimicked his and Junior Wells' style. That reveal made Buddy proud. However, it was later that Buddy truly realized how much respect Clapton had for him. In the late 1980s, Clapton invited Buddy to share the stage with him in Atlantic City. It was December 1, 1989, and the show would later be remembered as a monumental night, with Clapton and others playing together. But for Buddy, what mattered most was Clapton making space for him, lifting him up, and acknowledging his talent in front of the world. Eric didn't have to do that, Buddy once said, but he did because he meant it. What touched Buddy most was the sincerity behind Clapton's praise. Clapton would tell interviewers time and again that without Buddy Guy, his own sound wouldn't have existed in the same way. He credited Buddy's fiery guitar style, his bold stage presence, and his fearless risk-taking as direct inspirations. To hear a man of Clapton's stature publicly admit that he was not just influenced by Buddy but in awe of him was something that deeply humbled Guy. Even in later years, Clapton continued to think highly of Buddy, often introducing him on stage as the best guitar player alive. Clapton on countless occasions also acknowledged Buddy as a friend of his. Buddy in turn never stopped expressing gratitude for Clapton's support, knowing that it helped bring him renewed recognition at a time when he could easily have been overlooked. For Buddy Guy, Eric Clapton wasn't just a peer. He was proof that true greatness recognizes greatness, that even the biggest stars can be fans at heart. And to this day, Buddy holds the admiration he has for these 6 musicians close. Let's know your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, like, and share.